Welcome back, everybody. Okay, let's jump right into this incredibly emotional, character-driven explainer of Session 9 of Kalanema Echoes of the Divine. Today, we're zeroing in on the absolute session highlights from Shadows of the Past. Seriously, if you've been following the campaign, you already know the stakes are sky high, but this session, it completely shifts gears. We're moving away from that intense combat and diving headfirst into some massive psychological reveals and incredibly heavy moral questions. So let's get into it, because the storytelling here is just top tier. Mother, why didn't you tell us about that? Man, this one heartbreaking line from Daisy, it just perfectly captures the emotional fallout of that morning. Think about it. All these secrets that her mother, Anna, had been holding on to for a literal lifetime were suddenly just spilling out into the open. The whole session is basically anchored around this devastating weight of these secrets and how the family, and our party, of course, has to somehow pick up the pieces. Moving on to Section 1, the lanterns go dark. So this dawn setting gives us the baseline for the incredible roleplay that's about to drop. Aaron steps outside first thing in the morning to check those necromantic lanterns, and nothing. They are completely dark, no light whatsoever. And honestly, this was the exact physical confirmation the party needed. The lantern lurker, that horrific entity feeding on the wistful way in, is truly finally gone. You can literally feel the air change. But, well, the victory is kind of messy. Back inside, the party finds Anna collapsed right there in the reception area. She has absolutely zero memory of leaving her bed, completely confused about how she even got downstairs. Heron immediately jumps in, casting a healing spell on the disoriented innkeeper, and it leads to this genuinely touching family moment. Anna's daughters just rush in to embrace her, absolutely flooded with relief that she's alive, even if they don't fully get what just happened. Which brings us to Section 2, Anna's fading gift. Now, that family relief, yeah, it's pretty short-lived because a massive lore reveal drops right over their morning tea. Heron gently presses Anna on her history, asking how she started taking in orphans, and Anna reveals this incredibly tragic backstory. As a young woman, she lost her entire family in a devastating fire, and in the agonizing aftermath of that loss, she somehow developed this supernatural premonition ability. It was like this fleeting awareness of impending sadness and pain. She basically turned this curse into a mission, seeking out kids on the brink of tragedy, adopting orphans like Daisy, Lavender, and Rose before disaster could strike. But then, she drops a total bombshell. That lifelong power? It has suddenly and completely vanished. She feels totally drained. But is she telling the whole truth? Anna claimed she didn't know the source of her power, but Jace, he immediately wasn't buying it. And Heron backed this up with a crazy high insight roll, revealing a super complex truth. See, Anna wasn't intentionally lying to the party. She was lying to herself. She suffered from these horrific dreams of death, sometimes happening right there in the inn, and deep down, she knew they were real visions. She just absolutely refused to admit it. And this leads to what is easily the funniest small moment of the session, Heron shooting this hilariously unsubtle, incredibly meaningful stare directly across the table at Jace to confirm his suspicions. All right, Section 3, preparing the next host. So, stepping outside for a quick private debrief, the party arrives at a genuinely terrifying realization. And I want to slow down for a second here, because Jace pieces together this remarkably grim theory, and it makes total, horrifying sense. Look, Anna is elderly, right? Her usefulness to a parasitic entity was fading. The lurker was actually phasing her out in favor of 16-year-old Rose. Suddenly, it all clicks. This is exactly why Rose suffered from those intensely vivid nightmares on a strict monthly cycle, hinting at a dark lunar connection. Plus, Jace points out that the older body they found in the garden predated Velsharoon's arrival entirely. So this wasn't connected to the recent divine upheaval. This was an isolated ancient horror that had been feeding right under their noses the whole time. So the really crucial point here is how they knew for an absolute fact the family wasn't just, having bad dreams. During that brutal cellar fight, the entity actually tried to invade Dimitri's mind. But his mental fortifications completely blocked it, and this is a massive mechanical beat. Dimitri's confirmation basically proved that literal possession was happening, meaning Anna, and potentially Rose, were victims here, not masterminds. They were more than likely completely out of control of their own actions while these murders were taking place. Okay, moving into Section 4, Tracks and Tanagers. Desperately needing to clear their heads, the party decides to stay another night and head east up the mountain path to find that mysterious X marked on their map. They walk for 3 agonizingly tense hours. Hour 1, Heron finds only game tracks, rabbits, small animals. Hour 2? Exact same thing. Absolutely nothing humanoid. But then, just as they're about to throw in the towel in Hour 3, Heron finds them. Kobold tracks. And not just any tracks, but ones perfectly matching the specific type from the cave way back in Session 5. As soon as he hears this, Dmitri is practically foaming at the mouth, immediately ready to draw weapons and just charge forward into danger. Luckily, the rest of the party manages to talk Dmitri down from the ledge. They wisely realize that Anna and her daughters are sitting ducks, completely vulnerable back at the inn. So Heron carves this pictogram of a wheat head into a tree with her axe, which is Shudar's sign, just to mark the trail for later. Then they make the smart tactical choice to pack it in and head back. Now, the really crucial point on this return trip is Heron's fantastic survival roll. She rolls a 21. And with the heavy pressure of tracking suddenly lifted, something truly wonderful happens. She spots a Western tanager. Right in the middle of all this incredibly heavy, morbid storytelling about demonic possession and murder, Heron gets this pure, unadulterated moment of joy. She literally just goes happily birdwatching. She's completely delighted by this beautiful little bird, pointing the tanager out to absolutely anyone in the party who would give it a second look. It is just a fantastic character moment that injects some much-needed vibrant lightness right back into the afternoon. All right, our final section, Section 5, the price paid. Unfortunately, that lightness does not last very long. Back at the inn, Jace tries to play detective. He's meticulously going through the guest register, trying to spot forged departures to nail down the exact timeline of the murders. But in this great moment of gentle comedy, he completely fails the role. Like, even after burning a precious lucky point for a reroll, he still whiffs it. He gets absolutely nowhere. After that little fumble, the party spends hours doing the incredibly hard, sobering work of identifying the bodies in the cellar, thanks to a brilliant 23 investigation roll. Then Dmitri takes on the solemn duty of digging proper graves out in the forest. And all of this builds to the massive emotional centerpiece of this session the very next morning. Heron takes Anna aside for this private, completely unsparing, yet deeply warm confrontation. She looks Anna dead in the eye and tells her the horrific truth about those murdered travelers in the cellar. The gifts you had came at a price, and that price was paid by others. She gently but firmly forces Anna to look at the tragic collateral damage of her premonitions. And Anna's devastation just completely rings out in her response. All I wanted was to help the girls. It is so incredibly heartbreaking. But notice how brilliantly Heron handles this moment. She doesn't condemn Anna. Why? Because Anna wasn't fully in control. Instead, Heron reframes this massive tragedy. She tells Anna that it is now her ultimate responsibility to make those girls' lives mean something. She has to make the inn and their future worth that terrible cost. It is just a total masterclass in roleplay. Finally, as the party packs up to leave the Wistful Way Inn, Arian delivers what might just be the most iconic closing line of the entire campaign so far. I wish it had been a hag. Hags would have been simpler. Wow. It so perfectly captures the messy, morally gray emotional reality the party is leaving behind them. You can smite a hag with a sword, right? You absolutely cannot smite a lifetime of generational trauma and inadvertent guilt. And that brings us to the end of our explainer. But, as you know, the story is far from over. As the party finally marches east, we are left staring down some massive unresolved threads. What exactly lies at the end of those kobold tracks? What on earth is that map's mysterious X? And most chillingly, does that dark lunar cycle that plagued Rose still matter, even though the lurker is technically gone? We're just going to have to see what Session 10 brings. Thanks so much for joining me for this deep dive. Keep your mental walls strong, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.